Hi, this is Corey Smallcanyon here at Delicate Arch in the Arches National Park and outside of Moab, Utah. And so I'll be talking about Navajo genealogy, and I decided that I would go ahead and share a little story about my last name, Smallcanyon. So my relatives come from an area that is known as Navajo Mountain, but originally small canyons are not from the Navajo Mountain area. So during the 1860s, the federal government went to war with the Navajos uh, with an event called the Navajo Long Walk. With the Navajo Long Walk, the idea was to instill ideas that the U.S. government learned from the Civil War with the scorched earth policy, which they decided to use towards the Navajos, which would force the Navajos to surrender to the army. Part of that was some of my family, which was from the Canyon de Chelly area in Arizona. They ended up either being caught or turning themselves in, and they went to Fort Sumner as prisoners of war during this time. When in 1868, when there was an agreement between the Navajos and the U.S. federal government to end uh, the war between the two governments, the Navajos were allowed to go back to New Mexico and Arizona to an area that's known as Original Navajo Reservation Area. And as part of that, my family, as they were leaving this area, Fort Sumner, to go back to Canyon de Chelly, they were given the opportunity to obtain supplies in Fort Defiance and whatnot. But as they were making their way back home, just outside of Gallup, my great grandfather was born, and his he was later known as far as the English translation goes, the the son of the man, the little man from Canyon de Chelly, and that's what he was known by a lot of people. So during the 1930s, when the federal government decided that they needed to start getting a census number of all the Navajos, they decided that there needed to be some rules for figuring out how many Navajos there were and how to put their names into something that was comprehensive for Euro Americans. And part of the rules were that if a census taker found a name that was too hard to pronounce, or it was considered demeaning or inappropriate, it was the prerogative of the census taker to change the name. And with my great grandfather, the census taker had a hard time understanding what he was saying because he was pretty old at that time and considered the name too long, so they changed the name. Since it was the son of the little man from living in Canyon de Chelly, they kept the little and they kept the canyon, creating Small Canyon. And so that's where the Small Canyon name comes from, due to the census takers and part of my great grandfather's name, who eventually found a couple, found a wife who was from the Navajo Mountain area, and so he ended up moving to the Navajo Mountain area and growing up there, and had eventually married his wife's sister, and between the two sisters they had at least 23 to 24 children between the two wives. So a lot of the small canyons came out of that. With I have tons of cousins and relatives. Any small canyon I run into, I'm related to. And but that's how the Small Canyon name came about. I will be sharing a couple more stories, but I just wanted to give you an idea of some of the exciting things that people find in family history. And I thought I'd just share the Navajo genealogy and some of the concerns and difficulties that people can have from doing Navajo genealogy. And I'll be talking to you later. And this is me signing out.